Harvey Earl Wilson was born to Arthur and Chloe Huffman Wilson on a farm 2 miles south of Rockford, Ohio, on May 3, 1907, and he passed away on January 16, 1987, at the age of 79. His father was a farmer, and his mother, who was a homemaker, encouraged young Earl to pursue a career outside of farming. Earl attended Rockford Central High School, where he was the sports writer. During high school, Earl contributed to the Rockford Press, which was the local newspaper owned by George Kinder. He also wrote for the Lima Republican Gazette, as well as the Piqua, Ohio Daily Call, where he earned $15 per week. After graduating from high school, Earl enrolled at Heidelberg College in Tiffin, Ohio, and would remain for 2 years before transferring to Ohio State University in Columbus. At Ohio State, Earl would write for the Lantern, which was the student newspaper, and he also had a part-time job at the Columbus Dispatch as well as the International News Service Bureau. In 1931, Earl graduated from Ohio State with a degree in journalism. In 1935, Earl began working for the Washington Post, while also sending samples of his work to an editor at the New York Post. In 1935, Earl moved to New York City to begin working at the New York Post. Upon moving to New York City, Earl rented a room in a boarding house where he met his future wife, a secretary named Rosemary Lyons, who was from East St. Louis, Illinois. They married in 1936, and the couple struggled for several years until Earl's work at the Post began to take off. Their only child, Earl Wilson Jr., was born in December of 1942. That same year, he took over a column from a writer who had went off to war. Earl would write this daily column for the next 40 years, and he would name it, "It Happened Last Night." The column was essentially a gossip column. While a lot of gossip columnists were not held in high regard, Earl was different. He was a trained journalist used to writing hard news. He double-checked his facts, avoided innuendo and sensationalism, and he covered his stories as real news items. He had a distinct reputation for being fair and honest and was trusted by celebrities. This column would eventually be syndicated and would appear in over 175 newspapers nationwide. Earl would work long hours, arising in the late morning. He would telephone news sources and take reports from several assistants. He and his wife, Rosemary, also known as BW, which stood for Beautiful Wife, would go out for a late dinner at Toots Shor's Restaurant Nightclub, or a similar theater district restaurant or bar. They would make the rounds of other restaurants and lounges, where celebrities and sports figures would hang out until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Earl would end his column with the tagline, "That's Earl, brother." His nickname given to him by the celebrities was Midnight Earl, and his funny one-liners in his column were referred to as Earl's Pearls. Earl was no stranger to appearing on television. In the early 1950s, he was an occasional panelist on the NBC game show Who Said That? From May 2nd, 1951 to March 2nd, 1952, Earl had a variety interview TV show on the Dumont television network, which was called Stage Entrance. On the show, Earl would usually interview an up-and-coming artist as well as an established entertainer. As with most Dumont programs, no complete episodes are known to exist since they were all performed live. There are only a couple of short clips that do exist from Kinescope that was done at the time. So at the time, the Dumont network was the third television network behind NBC and CBS.
You boys got anything more to say?
Well, Earl, they say music speaks louder than words, so we'd rather voice our opinion that way.
I think that'd be all right with everybody if you really want to do it. Okay, now while you fellows are getting up there, I better tell the public that we're going to have some really torrid tempo with Charlie Parker, the alto sax, and Diz at the trumpet, and Dick Hyman's at the piano. They're going to play, what is it?
I think it's Hot House.
Hot House? Okay, fellas, let's go.
On Sunday, February 9th, 1964, the Beatles appeared for the first time on American television on The Ed Sullivan Show. After the Beatles performed their first two songs, Ed Sullivan said he wanted to dedicate that performance to three people. The first was Johnny Carson. The second was Randy Parr, who was the teenage daughter of Jack Parr. And the third person was Earl Wilson. Earl was the author of several books, including I Am Gazing Into My 8-Ball, written in 1945, Pike's Peak or Bust, written in 1946, Let 'Em Eat Cheesecake, written in 1949, Look Who's Abroad Now, written in 1953, Earl Wilson's New York, 1964, Show Business Laid Bare, 1971, and in 1976 he wrote an unauthorized biography of Sinatra, Frank Sinatra, which revealed some of John F. Kennedy's extramarital affairs. Earl appeared in 5 movies, which were cameo roles portraying himself. They include Copacabana in 1947 with Groucho Marx and Carmen Miranda, A Face in the Crowd in 1957, starring Andy Griffith in a dramatic role, College Confidential in 1960, Beach Blanket Bingo in 1965, which starred Frankie Avalon, Annette Funicello, Buster Keaton, Paul Lynde, and Don Rickles. And in 1968, he appeared in Where Were You When the Lights Went Out, which starred Doris Day.
You kids know who this is? It's Earl Wilson, the famous columnist.
Who's she, the BW?
What's a BW? Well, in Earl's column, it always means his beautiful wife, only this one isn't.
Beautiful, yes, but wife, no.
Haven't you ever heard of Earl Wilson?
Oh, you'll have to excuse Bonehead. He hasn't even heard of President Wilson.
You're close. Come along now, and let's get out of these loose clothes and slip.
So to sum up Earl's life, you can say he certainly had a very interesting one. For more than 40 years, he knew practically every celebrity that there was, and they all knew him. Film stars, TV stars, Broadway stars, sports figures, princesses, and even Albert Einstein. When Earl set out on his journalism career, I'm sure he had no idea that he would end up doing what he did. But it was an opportunity to earn a living, and he made the most of it. Earl once wrote, quote, "There was a time when I resented this tag, gossip columnist, but I have learned to live with it, for I've decided that gossip is merely news that hasn't been admitted yet," end quote. In his column, he followed the self-imposed rule never to print any gossip that would break up a marriage. Earl wrote with wit and grace and often with tongue-in-cheek. The fact that he did his job with integrity and honesty says much about his character. That's Earl, brother. Please consider joining our Facebook page, which is called Shane's Crossing Historical Society. We also invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is called Shane's Crossing Historical Society.